So you want to know more about Reinhard von Astrea? Well, it seems to me you've came to the right place. I have the video just for you, and it's right here. And let me preface this by saying, I wasn't supposed to be making this video right now. It was supposed to be an All Divine Protections Explained video, but it was like 20-something minutes long simply because of one man, the one we're talking about today, Reinhard. So if that spoils anything in the video for you, I mean, he's kind of overpowered. So yeah, anyways, I figured I'd just throw that video into the trash, make this one, you know, and include all of his powers and whatnot. And then in the All Divine Protections Explained video, I can cut down significantly on the time. So that's why we're here with the Reinhard video. I'm realizing that many of you probably didn't really care to hear that, but for some reason in my heart of hearts, I felt like it needed to be told. So anyways, now that I have that off my chest, we're gonna hop into the video. Reinhard in-depth character analysis. Appearance, backstory, personality, powers and abilities, you name it, we're talking about it. So let's get the introduction out the way. Meet Reinhard von Astrea, also known as the Sword Saint and the hero. Reinhard is a 19 to 20-year-old man, depending on the part of the story you're in, that stands at a height of about 6 foot, with his most prominent feature being the fact that he has flaming red hair. Every time we see him, he's covered up by his knight regalia, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this man is ripped. I mean, you don't swing swords all day and not get ripped, right? You know what? I'm buying a sword. Now let's go back to when Reinhard was a youngin', or aka Reinhard's history. Given his last name, Reinhard is of the von Astrea bloodline, aka the Sword Saint's bloodline. A family that over generations inherited the great Sword Saint of Luginica. The divine protection of Sword Saint was actually handed down throughout their family, although to only one member at a time. With that being prefaced, let's hop into it. He was a child of Henkel von Astrea and Luana von Astrea. Henkel Astrea at this point is the head of the Astrea family. Until this point, there's minimal characteristics that we know and can describe about Luana Astrea. Even at such a young age, Reinhard was loved by everyone in his family, which I guess a family loving a new member of it wouldn't necessarily be so strange. But still, it is of note. His grandmother, Theresa von Astrea, upon her first time seeing him, could only describe him as a child that was loved by the world. However, only at the age of 2 his mother fell into a coma, and this caused his once very much loved by the community father to turn into an alcoholic. And since he was the leader and still the leader of the royal guards, caused him to become a hardline leader that chose to abuse his powers. A few years later, at the age of 5, the same woman that said he was loved by the world proceeded to die in the fight with the White Whale. And the reason for her dying in this fight was that in the middle of the fight with the White Whale, she lost her divine protection of the Sword Saint for unknown reasons. And these powers were inherited by Reinhard, resulting in him becoming the Sword Saint at the age of 5. Reinhard's grandfather Wilhelm was torn up by this turn of events, even blaming Reinhard for his wife's death, which caused major turmoil within the family. Wilhelm would continue to neglect Reinhard and the rest of the family, only to take revenge on the White Whale who had taken his wife, as we saw early on in the story. And this turmoil wouldn't stop there. For a period of time, Reinhard's father was the only one who cared about him or gave him any attention. Unfortunately, later on, his father, who had already become an alcoholic, would slowly go on to start blaming Reinhard as well for Theresa's death. The once pride and joy of the Astrea bloodline was now despised and hated by his closest family. The people that he shared blood and kinship with wish he was never born. Around the age of 5 to 6 years old, something truly terrifying was found out about Reinhard that his father found out firsthand. At this time, Reinhard's father was trying to convince an ex-teammate or colleague of his to rejoin the Royal Knights. His father's efforts really didn't work, but Reinhard was a kind child and wanted to help his dad. Okay, pause. Little side note if you're wondering what just happened to the lighting and why it might look weird and my curtains are closed or whatever. I had to go take care of something and yeah, I had to get back to recording the video at a later time. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. Reinhard tried to actually help his father by any means necessary to get this man to try to rejoin the Royal Knights. And in doing so, he unlocked the ability of mind control, or the divine protection of mind control to be precise. This changed Marco's mind, the man that his dad was trying to get to rejoin, making him immediately return to the Royal Knights. This put Reinhard under scrutiny as a threat. The Six Tongues, a protective organization that kind of keeps the peace of Luginica from the shadows, got word of this. Reinhard would be a threat to the kingdom, and they were tasked with either eliminating him or capturing him. His father started pleading with the members of the Sixth Tongue as well as Reinhard, specifically telling Reinhard never to use that divine protection again. And although I'm pretty sure this is a rare occurrence, Reinhard deactivated his ability to be able to mind control on command, which is just absolutely insane. Which, like I said, I could be wrong, but that is a rare feat. Okay, and there is some more I could tell about the royal family and what happened to them that resided over Luginica and what it might have to do with Reinhard, but it doesn't really tell much about his character or really his own history. But if you would like to know about that, leave it in a comment and I will make some type of comment to let you guys know what that's about, and I'll pin it to the top. So that basically gives you the rundown on Reinhard's history up until now. His past and journey to becoming the strongest person in Luginica, or strongest weapon at least. Okay, now let's get into his personality, although I don't think it would be too hard to understand what kind of personality he has. Reinhard is a firm believer in treating other people with the highest, utmost levels of respect, from a commoner to a noble. He is always fair and just to the people he interacts with, even being so to his opponents. While some knights might inflict pain on someone that they don't need to, his ironclad rule that he sticks to, no matter what, is that if the situation can be handled without hurting someone, he will not do it. And with all that being said, people return the favor to him just as much. And with all this talk of him respecting and being fair to others, he's came to be known as one of the most respectable people in the kingdom, if not the most respectable person in the kingdom. Everyone can trust him to do the right thing and act on behalf of those who can't. Apart from his family, the only people that don't like him are people who are jealous of him that take jabs at him. But what makes them mad the most is whenever he brushes it off with a smile and sometimes even compliments them back. He's really just the type of guy to, regardless of what you've done wrong, he would give you a chance to surrender, or possibly just get out of town, change your ways, although this usually doesn't go over well with somebody who's evil. Reinhard truly shows no prejudices. So if that doesn't give you a good explanation of Reinhard's personality, is like, I honestly don't know what will. So let's move on to Reinhard's abilities. And by the way, bro, this might take a while, so if I take a shortcut to explain something, you'll understand, trust me. And I'm sure many of you already know why. Let's start off with the greatest ability he might have. Although it's just divine protection, a good way to say will be a divine protection of divine protections. This gives him the ability to gain a new divine protection if he feels he needs it strongly, such as with the mind control incident I mentioned earlier. Mind you, this has nothing to do with the already overpowered Sword Saint divine protection. So for example, if he needed a divine protection that tells them what other people have as divine protections, he could just know because he would gain that divine protection. And when I say anything, I mean anything, because I quite literally mean he has the divine protection of clothing as well. Basically the divine protection of drip, okay? He knows the best clothes for people. It's a strange thing, but it's true. Another thing this ability gives him is the ability to deactivate divine protections or erase them, which I guess that means I was right about it being a really rare thing. And he might be the only one that's able to do that, I'm not sure. I've looked into this before, but my memory is not the greatest. Gomenasai. And of course, being the Sword Saint, he has the divine protection of Sword Saint, right? This immediately grants the users to be masters of the sword. You are basically able to wield a sword second to none, just by having this divine protection. At 5 years old, when he gained this divine protection, the person that at that point was the deputy commander of the Royal Knights, as well as his own father, which is amazing. 5 years old, by the way, seriously. This ability is said to give you the power of the sword god, and you can see things through his eyes, or her eyes, might be a her. He can pinpoint the exact trajectories of incoming attacks, exactly where they're gonna land at what speed, and then we'll also know the exact optimal way to react, whether it be dodging or counterattacking, and can see the exact weak spots of an enemy at all times. And this doesn't just mean swords, I mean anything, whether it be arrows, swords, knives being thrown at him, it doesn't matter. Something that causes him a threat, this ability will activate. Now moving on to his many different combat divine protections, and this is what I mean by shortening it. So normally you would say divine protection of water reflection, which decreases the effectiveness of water attacks by 80%. But instead you could categorize them as divine protection of magic attacks for this reason. So the same would be applied for the other elements as well, like wind, earth, fire. He would get 80% off of all of those. And it's a lot faster putting it that way than going by each one by one. So yeah, basically all magic gets an 80% debuff when being used against Reinhard. And the opposite could be said about him too. He gets basically a buff in any situation. Divine protection of blue skies. He gets stronger under blue skies. Divine protection of bleeding. So if you cut him, he's going to get way stronger. Divine protection of the night sky. Oh, you thought it was cool that he was strong during the day. Don't even try attacking at night. It's the same thing. I mean, in reality, you could just say the man has divine protection of life itself. He has a divine protection that allows him to move at insane speeds, as well as one that can make it where he can dodge projectiles. Hold on. Let me rephrase that. Not dodge projectiles. The projectiles dodge him. So he already has the Sword Saint protection, right? So he can see exactly where to move or what to do about an arrow coming. But with this divine protection, the arrow actually just kind of changes direction and goes past him for no good reason. That's why they call it a divine protection after all. He has a divine protection that makes it where he just can't get ambushed either. The attack that somebody's coming after him with that he doesn't notice will miss no matter what. And the preceding strikes kind of have the same thing, where they will miss too unless he's physically incapable of getting out the way. Which is unlikely given that he has a divine protection that makes him really fast, so yeah. Kind of just stack on top of each other, it's insane. He also has a divine protection of weapon mastery. So like I said before, if the need's unnecessary, he's not going to use his sword. But if he picks up literally any weapon around him, he automatically becomes a master of that weapon, as if he'd used it his whole life and possibly more than anyone else. And by the way, this isn't the complete list, because as long as the story goes on, and he feels like he needs another divine protection, he will gain that divine protection. So just remember, in a couple years from now, although he already has over 100, he could have over 1,000. Who knows? Alright, moving on to some other abilities. Although he has the divine protection of the Sword Saint, he also has the divine protection of the Master Swordsman. And this basically means regardless of whether he had the Sword Saint's abilities, his handling of the sword would be amazing regardless. Okay, so let's move on to some attacks. First of all, he has the sword play of the Astrea family. This attack is just outright crazy. It could be just one swing, and even that of not his own sword. He sucks up all the mana of the atmosphere around him into his sword, and like I said, doesn't have to be his own sword, and delivers an obliterating blow to whatever it is, or whoever it is, and quite literally splits space itself in half of whatever he's trying to, destroy. So everything around him feels the effects of that as well. Whether it being destroying buildings around, he wasn't even trying to attack either. Reinhard also has an attack called a Slash of the Dragon Sword Raid. And this is really just a more destructive version of what we talked about earlier in combination with the Astrea family sword play attack. So as you could imagine, instead of destroying buildings, you destroy things like, the planet. So yeah, you can cut space in half. So with this attack, it could cut the sky in half, the planet in half, really just destroy the whole planet. But in a way, this is part of a divine protection as well, as it has another OP thing to go with it. So when Reinhard proceeds to take out whatever the swords deem is fit to be able to kill, or a worthy opponent, and takes out the world with that attack, the world will be reborn without that person in it. Or I'm not sure if it just resets the world completely to like the earliest history, or if it just resets the world without that enemy. I'm thinking it resets the world without that enemy, but I'm not sure. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below. And by the way, there are more intricacies to that attack, but if the outcome's the world being destroyed, then do the intricacies really matter that much? Like a vortex of mana, crumbling earth, you get it. Although Reinhard has been overpowered, he doesn't have any type of magic abilities outside of like Astrea's swordplay and being able to strengthen his attacks or like his sword. And you could almost consider this an ability. It's called the Defective Gate. He isn't able to actually produce mana outside of his own body, but he constantly absorbs mana, even from other opponents or the atmosphere, so opponents can't use mana. Or I guess I take that back. It's not like he chooses it, because actually even allies wouldn't able to be used mana in his presence. Although he can control who he wants to absorb it most from, if that makes sense, or quickest. But he can still use this mana to like make his attack stronger, physically faster, all that type of stuff. But he can't shoot out fireballs or nothing like that, which is kind of just a sad nerf when you think about it, because he can do basically anything anyways. And I don't mean sad for the storyline or nothing. I'm just saying like that. Does that really do anything though? Reinhard also has an affinity with spirits, although he can't use spirit arts or make contracts with spirits whatsoever. Lesser spirits constantly try to heal him in battle or whenever he's injured. But it's not like he can command them to do what he wants. They just kind of do it out of their own kindness, I guess. They like him. I don't know. That's probably considered the divine protection too, when I'm really thinking about it. But no, technically it's an affinity. And as far as weapon goes, of course, the only weapon he is known to carry with him is the Dragon Sword of Raid, or Reed. I'm not sure how to say that. And like I said before, as far as like the divine protections and stuff go, there's a whole list of them. But basically, if you can imagine it, he has it. Outside of being able to shoot fireballs and stuff like that and use mana attacks. So, can he jump higher than most people? Yes. Can he run faster than most people? Yes. Does he have lightning fast reflexes like unheard of? Yes. And I'd say that kind of sums up Reinhard as a whole. So in other words, if you enjoyed this video explaining why you'll never be as cool as Reinhard, and neither will I, make sure to drop a like and pretty please subscribe. I would actually really appreciate that. Of course, only if you really want to. Don't just do it because I said so. Other than that, leave a comment down below. What do you think about Reinhard, his backstory, powers? Do you think he's overpowered? I mean, is that even a question? And just any other comments, whether it's a video suggestion, anything like that, let me know down below, because I love talking to you guys down there. So in other words, what I'm saying is, I just want the divine protection of YouTube love. Anyways, it's your boy Shriz. Here's another ReZero video. You can watch that if you want to. Also, there's a subscribe thing right there, so you don't have to go running off for it. Anyways, regardless of what time it is, I hope you have a great day or a great night. Depends on whenever I'm uploading this. And I hope to see you in another video. Hope to catch you in another one.